Hey there YouTube, this is Mr.Lubufu and I'm back with my complete Fate Reforged set review. Like usual, and like I've said in the other videos, the focus on this is basically to help you guys rock the pre-release. I'm not going to be one who's an expert on nailing what constructed cards are good, but I am good at limited, and that's why I'm going to pass on whatever knowledge I have, or at least gut instincts I have, because, well, I'm not psychic, I don't know everything. Anyway, let's go ahead and hop into black cards. We have first Alicia's Vanguard. It's a 4 mana, 3/3, so another hill giant. There's a lot of hill giants in this format that it has dash. I'm not a huge fan of this guy, to be completely honest. It seems like he's gonna trade with a lot in this format, and it's not. If you just need something to fit the curve, this is probably something you want to play. But apart from that, I wouldn't consider it too highly. Ancestral Vengeance is interesting. Unfortunately, since you give an enchanted creature -1/-1, and you get to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Unfortunately, one, it costs double black, so you have to be a little bit heavier on the black side to play it. And two, there's way too many 2 and 3 toughness creatures. Given the effect is oftentimes good enough that you'll play it, and you're like, okay, now you have bad blocks, so get it in for some damage, but it's not as powerful as some of the other cards you'll see later. Well, Archfiend of Depravity is just an absolute bomb rare. Apart from it being a 5/4 flyer, which in this format is huge, you make them sack a bunch of creatures. So nothing wrong with this guy. Very powerful effect. Battle Brawler is a card I really like. If you're in Mardu-ish colors, this guy could just get out of hand. Apart from having 3 power, which means it'll trade for basically everything in the format, the fact that it has first strike is just really, really good. It trades up with most things, so it's a very powerful 2-drop if you have a red or white permanent to follow it up. Speaking of bomb rares, Brutal Horde Chief. Yeah, that guy's real good. Don't need to say much else. Crux of Fate is a Wrath. If you're ever playing in Limited, it's good to know the Wraths. In this case, it's Crux of Fate. After destroy all non-dragon creatures, will deal with most things on the battlefield. So, very powerful effect. Next, we have Dark Deal. 3 mana. Each player discards all cards in their hand, then draws that many cards -1. Almost strict Delve Enabler, and even still, I don't think I would play it unless I'm really desperate. Diplomacy of the Wastes is a very expensive duress. It's duress that they lose 2 life if you have a warrior. I like the actual duress effects in Sealed a lot more, because everybody's just playing their bombs. Maybe this is even good enough to justify it there, because there's just a lot of very powerful cards in this format. But my gut tells me 3 mana for a duress effect. It's just not something I want to be casting in. I want to be casting a 3 mana, 2/2 at least in this format. Speaking of powerful commons, we have Douse in Gloom. This is probably one of the more premier black removal spells, because so many things in this format have 2 toughness, especially in Sealed, where it's a ton of Fate Reforged. Douse in Gloom is very good, and certainly something that you want to open a bunch of if you're playing black. Next, we have Fearsome Awakening, which returns a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and if it's a dragon, put 2/+1/+1 counters on it. I normally am a fan of these Raise Dead effects of sorts. Like Rise from the Grave was one of my favorite uncommons in Core Set back in the day. But that would be from any graveyards. This one, already had to have had a creature. It goes a lot better in these Delve decks, because if you mill something powerful, you get to bring it back. I think it's a completely playable card. You don't want to play too many, but if you have it, certainly can be a very strong effect, especially for Sealed. Now, Ghastly Conscription. So, for Draft, I would say this is completely unplayable. Don't bother. The format's nowhere near slow enough. For Sealed, I would actually consider it. Normally, these overpriced mythics overpriced being like mana cost, are typically unplayable in even Sealed. This one is just borderline good enough that if you cast it, you're probably winning the game. And this format seems to be a little bit on the slow side and have some durdle to it. So this would be something I would consider playing in Limited, which is very unusual for me. I normally am not a huge fan of these expensive mythics in Limited. Next, we have Grave Strength, which is 2 mana, possibly do nothing, or possibly get up to +3/+3 counters. I don't like these effects. It enables Delve, sure, but not something I want to be casting in Limited. Gurmag Angler, something I'd play 1 or 2 of. A 5/5 in this format is absolutely huge. You'll be hard pressed to find something bigger than a 5/5, and this guy can get on the hand. If you cast him for 3 or 4 mana, you are getting just ahead of the curve, which is something that in this format seems very powerful. I already mentioned when Hooded Assassin was spoiled. This is a card I want to play a bunch of. Even though it's just because I like it. I think it's probably like a 19th, 20th card. Having destroy target creature that was dealt damage this turn can be a very useful effect in Limited, and getting a 2/3 in this format also quite good. 3 toughness is the magic number here. Mardu Shadow Spear, probably too aggressive for Limited. Or at least for sealed, it's probably way too aggressive. Unless you open like 4 of these guys and you just want to go hyper aggressive. I think this guy's just... I'm not a fan of 1/1s for 1 unless they do something more relevant. And this guy is just too aggressive, I feel, for sealed. Mardu Strike Leader, on the other hand, it's pretty decent. It has 2 toughness, so it will trade with a lot of things. But you're able to get a 2/1, so the 2 power, relevant. So I think this guy is okay. You at least get to replace him. And if you dash him at the right time, getting a free 2/1 into play can be pretty good. Merciless Executioner is a 3/1 for 3. It's a warrior too, which is important to keep in mind. Each player sacrifices a creature, so it is the Fleshbag Marauder effect. And I was a huge fan of casting Fleshbag Marauder, and I'm foresee myself being a huge fan of casting this guy. If they have 1 good creature in battlefield, it becomes basically a Diabolic Edict, which is a very good effect. So I think this guy is pretty good, and certainly a strong uncommon. Noxious Dragon, like all of the uncommon dragons, very good. It's a big flyer and gets to kill something on the way out. Ogre Sure Shot. Man, I sure butchered that one. It's a 4 mana 4/2. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, target creature in opponent's control gets -1/-1. So I don't foresee you attacking much with this guy, but if you ever get to cast 2 creatures, it kills almost everything that has 2 toughness. That's why this guy is a 4/2. That's important to keep in mind. If they made him a 4/3, he'd be way too good. Already, he's still very powerful. So, strong effect. Definitely a premier uncommon in black. Palace Siege, like all the sieges are insane and limited. Karsi High Priest. Now, it's just a 1 mana 0/2. But for 1 and a black, tap, sacrifice a creature, manifest the top card of your library. This does not seem to be a very powerful effect, but this guy's going to be very good. Much like the Homunculus Maker in Innistrad, having this effect where you could just be like, okay, your removal spells, they kill my guy, but I still get a free 2/2, is a pretty good effect. I think this guy is very good. My gut tells me he's good, at least. So, next you have Reach of Shadows, 5 mana, destroy target creature. Function that's 1 or more colors. In this format, it's almost everything. There are some exceptions, of course, and it doesn't hit manifested creatures, but this card is basically a 5 mana removal spell. Another very good card, certainly something you want to play as many as you get in sealed. Sib Sig Host is a 5 mana 2/6 that each player mills 3. No thank you, not for me. Sib Sig Muck Draggers is a 9 mana 3/6 with Delve that returns a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Also not a fan. The 3/6 body is impossible to get through on the ground, true, and getting a creature back is, some value. And if this format seems as slow as my gut tells me it is, it, might be playable. Soul Flayer is bonkers. Apart from being a very powerful 4/4, which is big enough to survive most things on the ground, if you're able to give it flying, you're probably set. Sultai Emissary is a 2-mana 1/1. When it dies, you manifest. So, free value. I would probably play this guy. Unfortunately, since he is just a 1/1, you will not be able to trade him for much. Most things are 2/2s at least, so you have to be prepared to lose this guy. Sultai Runemark is the next one in the series of 2 and a color for +2/+2 and an effect if you have the shard, or not shard, the clan. In this case, it gives Death Touch. Much like all the other ones, I'm not a fan. It just screams of getting 2. Like, if you get a removal spell, you got 2 for 1, and you got wrecked. Taskier the Golden Fang is broken and limited. Play him, and you'll be super happy. Tassigur's Cruelty is a very expensive Mind Rot. Sometimes I like casting Mind Rot in Sealed. Not so much in Draft, but in Sealed, when everybody's playing their Bonkers card, maybe this card is good enough to justify a slot. And lastly, we have Typhoid Rats. And I know I said earlier I don't like my 1/1s for 1, but I love my 1/1 Death Touches for 1. It's simple. It trades with almost everything in the format. Very good card to play. I would play, 2 or 3 of them, especially in Sealed, where it becomes a very powerful removal spell of sorts. People are so hesitant to play around it. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Be sure to check out the other episodes found on my channel, and I will see you guys next time.